Hello everyone, this video is on people pleasing and it comes from the heart space. We really want to be able to love people and to be loved in return. And when we're little kids, we just want to be loved unconditionally and left to run wild and allowed to make mistakes and be noisy. But sometimes, when our parents are exhausted or they have their own internal challenges, they can't always love so freely in every single moment. And that's okay, but whenever that little child feels that they've done something wrong, it really hurts them very, very deeply because their biggest desire is to please the parents, to receive the love of a parent, because that love of a parent is so big, so expansive, so divine. And that love of a parent actually creates life within a being. Without love, the life cannot actually come into being. They've done studies, and we know that with premature babies, when they're put in their incubators, they will not survive unless they're really, really loved. And they have people that come in and they just hold the babies, because if the babies are not held, if the babies are not loved, their hearts stop. And isn't that funny? Because sometimes when we see people, we love them. Oh, my heart stopped. It can go both ways, but love creates everything. And if there's any block to giving or receiving love, there can become kinks in the system. And the desire to please can then become a little bit quirky, because it's one thing to desire to please, that's okay. But if your desire to please is at the expense of the wellness of your own being, then there's a kink in the system, because you burn out, because you don't use your voice and say, well, I'd love to do that for you. I love you. But in doing that for you, I get damaged, or it's going to disrupt my internal system or my dreams. And sometimes there can be a compromise if one speaks one's voice, and there can be a container where conversations can happen. But a lot of the time, if we haven't been able to secure a flow of love from our parents, then there can be these kinks. They can be these really deep rooted subconscious urges to people please, where we just burn out, where we do things for other people and we forget about our own needs, where we don't really even understand fully who we are and what we like, where we can't really speak up, where we bend over backwards to help other people, where we post-rationalize why this is okay and maybe it's not. And so what that does, what that people pleasing does, even though it comes from a desire to connect, it actually dumbs us down. It dumbs us down. And the universe has created you to be so big and expansive, and to speak your truth, and to show up as the unique person that you are, and to have conversations with people and to co-create and to share your point of view with them and to speak up and say what your needs are in a specific moment in time, and to brainstorm and be creative and work with other people and just go into these spaces where you're with other people and they can point out blind spots that you have, and you can point out blind spots that they have, and you also can use your intuition to know if there's any kind of manipulation going on there. But in order to fully show up in the world, to be confident, to be integrated, and to be healthy and well, we have to stop dumbing ourselves down. We have to be able to say no sometimes. We have to be able to say no politely. Sometimes we have to say no firmly. Sometimes we don't need to say no at all. We just need to get out of there as quick as possible. But it's really important not to dumb oneself down, because the system works best when everybody's showing up as the full version of themselves. So imagine you have loads of bees buzzing around, and the bees are designed to show up and go to the flowers. What would happen if the bees were afraid of going to the flowers? If the bees stayed too much time on one flower, even though there wasn't anything left, any pollen left, and just froze on that flower, was afraid to upset that flower. So we have to return back to who we are, into a still space, and in that still space we get a little reconfiguration back in accordance with natural law. And so dropping into stillness, meditating, just reconnects us to a divine intelligence and to who we are, an undumbed down version, a non-dumbed down version of who we are. We remember who we are, we remember our needs, we become able to say no, we become able to see what's going on at a finer level intuitively. And then when we come out of the meditation, we're able to speak up for ourselves. But sometimes that can wear off if there's some stress that's being released after we come out of meditation. Sometimes things get dislodged when we're meditating and the stress can come out. So we just take it easy. But there is going to be a period when we come out of meditation, when we know who we are, where we're full, where we're completely unbounded. We know our power. And if we keep meditating and going into activity, meditating and going into activity, our daily meditation practice, meditating, activity, meditating, activity, what happens? That intelligence, that divine intelligence that we touch when we're in the stillness starts to infuse our actions, infuse our thinking, and dictate a path for us, which is extremely nourishing and fulfilling, not only for ourselves, but for everybody we interact with. And that is the power of meditation. And when I talk about meditation, I mean transcending, moving out of a waking, dreaming, and sleeping state into a fourth state of consciousness, a different state of consciousness, residing in that fourth state, becoming infused with divine intelligence, which is always giving us a task to be fully ourselves, and then coming out into the world, and you will know what to do. We only forget who we are and how powerful we are when we're very stressed, or we're caught up in our head and we're walking around like a walking head, worrying about the future, worrying about the past, not really present, not really grounded, worrying about what other people are doing, and oh, how are we going to be perceived, and do they like me or do they hate me? And this is a distraction from self. This dumbs you down. If you're very, very much concerned about what's going to happen, and you catastrophizing. Let me go into silence for a minute, and then I'll be able to say the word. You know what? This happens sometimes when I get really spacey in a meditative state when I'm talking. My mind stops functioning a little bit, and then it kind of integrates, and then I can speak again. So I do apologize. Catastrophizing. There we go. Got integrated. So if the mind's catastrophizing, that dumbs you down. If the mind is worrying about what happened in the past, which is gone, that dumbs you down. If you're worrying about what other people are doing and you're comparing yourself, that dumbs you down. There's multiple ways you can dumb yourself down. When you meditate, you come back to self, it reboots, you remember who you are, able to speak your voice, able to maybe even notice your blocks. When we meditate, things are shown to us. Our blocks and blind spots are shown to us, sometimes through an emotional release. Oh, I feel a bit, Or we just might start connecting dots, understanding ourselves and other people. There is a misunderstanding that when we meditate, nothing happens and we're just in this stillness. That's not the case. It's outside of your awareness, it's outside of your thinking. You are meditated. You don't meditate, you get meditated. This intelligence meditates you and creates changes in every single cell of your body. If you're doing it effortlessly and you're transcending and you're entering a fourth state, it's done for you. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to try, it's all taken care of. Merely the desire to just sit, or the decision to just sit. If you've been given a technique that allows you to transcend, it's an effortless technique. You can't transcend if it's not effortless. If it's not an effortless practice, you transcend and it's all done, and you come out really slowly, and then it's all done. It's all about doing less and accomplishing more. And so, yes, people pleasing. Sometimes when we go on a spiritual path and we think that we're a meditator or a spiritual person, the mind can then kind of get involved, or the ego can get involved, and then we want to present a people-pleasy version to the world. Like, I mustn't say no to people now I'm a meditator. I mustn't speak up and be loud or swear now I'm a meditator. I must be demure and soft and angelic and say sweet things, and never eat meat and only be a vegan, and oh, shame on you, you eat meat, oh, I'm so more superior to you because I don't, or all of this stuff goes on. It's the ego just attaches to the spiritual journey and then kind of separates from other people and then starts to finger wag. I'm better than you. That as soon as you notice you thinking that you're better than somebody else, that's your ego hijacking your spiritual journey. But if we have a tendency to dumb ourselves down or people please, a way to feel better is through finger wagging. The ego sometimes can start hijacking. And even though we might get a temporary boost thinking, oh, I'm so spiritual, and other people aren't. Look how terrible they are. They don't believe what I believe because they're not as intelligent, or I'm special and they're stupid, or they're evil. There's so many things that the mind can come up with. Notice it. Meditation, Yes, it infuses every single cell in your body, but it shows you your wounding and it shows you your ego. And so if something comes up and you have the desire to dumb other people down to boost yourself up, notice that, because the dumbing down can also go in the other direction where you want to dumb other people down. Say they're dumb. And if we're all interconnected, which you realize in a unity state, and if you keep meditating, you keep infusing the transcendence into every part of your life, which it's kind of done for you, then that won't make any sense anymore. Other people can't be dumb. They're connected to you. They're here to teach you a lesson. Maybe a difficult lesson. If you don't like somebody, there's a lesson in that. If you think you're better than somebody else, there's a lesson in that. If you're repulsed by something or someone, there's a lesson in that. If you feel the need to put other people on pedestals, and then if they do something wrong, shame them, there's a lesson in that. If you feel that you're not enough and everybody else is better than you, there's a lesson in that. There's always a lesson. So meditate and then notice what comes up. What comes up? It's all linked to dysfunction in the personality, stress, childhood wounding. And so just notice it. Meditate and then notice. Meditate, act, notice. Meditate, act, notice. Meditate, act, notice. Just be curious about what shows up in the mind without judging it. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're not your personality dysfunction. We all have personality dysfunction. Just by being human, we have personality dysfunction. There's nobody that doesn't have a slightly dysfunctional personality. It's okay. We don't need to get perfect, but we can kind of get to the point where we're not damaging people that we interact with as, on a regular basis. And if we don't dumb ourselves down and we fully show up in the world and we're aware of what we're thinking and we don't necessarily always act upon whatever nonsense thought arises, we're conscientious with our actions, then we won't dumb ourselves down and we won't dumb other people down. We dumb ourselves down when we say things we don't mean. We dumb ourselves down through being very insecure and worried and not able to speak up or be fully ourselves. And if you have done this for a long time, nature will start shouting at you through discomfort in your system, maybe even illness, maybe even stress release, dysregulation. You haven't really got a choice. You need to show up as yourself in order to feel okay, in order to be healthy and well and integrated. There is something else I'd like to share around being in a group, because when we're in a group, we often don't want to go away from the group. This is because we're so wired to live in community for survival. And so anyone who goes out of the group is a loner and on their own and, oh, could be eaten by a lion. And so sometimes if we're moving very fast in comparison to other people, or we're going to change direction and there's a limbo state and we haven't really found another group yet, then some fear and anxiety can rise up. And, meditating and staying positive and grounded can help in that limbo phase. But it's important that we do follow our inner intuitive desires. If there's a new path that unfolds for us to follow, maybe we need to change careers, maybe we need to change relationships, maybe we need to change where we live. Maybe we do this all very mindfully and with care, taking care of other people's hearts. But everything's moving and shifting in our life, and we just need to make sure that we follow our dharma, our purpose, and then meet other people that align with it, and we co-create with those people and not get stuck. Sometimes people get very stuck. Our intuition knows something's over before it's even ended, but people stay a lot longer. And maybe it's for practical reasons, and that's okay. And maybe you don't actually have to physically leave, you just need to leave your old way of perceiving the situation and create something else in order for you to stay but show up differently. But whatever it is, you have to upgrade, you have to change for it to work. And so you get better at that. You get life skill the more you meditate, or the more you find things to do that connect you back to who you truly are, and make sure you don't dumb yourself down. Because when you're not dumbing yourself down, your path forward becomes more clear, because you know who you are, you know your likes, your dislikes, your preferences at that moment in time, what makes you happy, and you're able to follow it unapologetically and mindfully. And therefore, maybe something creative comes out of doing that. And if you show up as fully yourself, then you're going to attract people that are going to see you and resonate fully with you. Because if you don't show up and you're dumbing yourself down, then you're kind of false advertising. You're not really going to be understood. It's like a wolf that thinks it's a sheep. And then the other sheep are like, well, you're behaving like us, but you look like a wolf and we're scared. And so it can confuse people and it can create dissonance. If you're dumbing yourself down and you're not fully being yourself, because you're very interconnected with everybody else, and I'm going to say something quite profound here, because it's very important, because you're so interconnected with everyone else, there's cords that go into everyone around you that share information with you. I'm sharing information with you, you're sharing information with me. If there is a room and there's 10 people in it, I'm corded to all those people. I'm able to know who they are at a deep, subtle level, and they're able to know who I am. This is non-verbally, because we're all interconnected. But if I'm showing up in the room and I'm not fully being myself, they will know that. Because this is non-verbal information, which is at a very refined, deep level. A sheep knows whether a wolf is in front of it. And that's not just because it looks like a wolf. There's an energy a wolf has that the sheep is picking up on. In fact, if you wear disguises, they don't really work because people are sharing energy. So you have an energetic footprint that is being picked up by everyone you interact with. And if you're not fully yourself, or you're giving off mixed messages, or you're not really speaking up, or you're pretending to be something that you're not, people are going to know. They are. You can't hide. And that is a theme which is in a lot of my videos, which is today, nobody can hide, nothing can hide. You have to be yourself more than ever. This is something massive because this is the time to not hide who you are for your life to fully work. Because if you try to hide things, the vibe is so high on the planet, people pick up on it and they notice the incongruences and they're like, that doesn't feel quite right. So showing up as oneself, not dumbing oneself down, makes everything congruent. People know they read you and there's no dissonance when they read you. You make sense to them. Everything's able to flow more smoothly. Everybody's able to communicate rather than just showing it one way and then saying something else. And there's just this like, well, I'm picking up on your energy that's like this, but you're saying something that's not right. And I see this sometimes with clients. They'll show up and they'll say, I'm a psychopath. I've done a study on and I've taken a test and I'm a psychopath. And I just say, no, you're not. And they go, oh, how do you know? I can read their energy. I know whether they're a psychopath or not, even if they've taken a test. I had an instance where many, many years ago, a war veteran who had actually killed people in war turned up and said, I'm a murderer and I actually murdered somebody who looked like you. Was I afraid? No. Why? Because he was safe and his energy was good. Oh, how can his energy be good? He killed somebody who looked like you. Yes, in a war zone, in an altered state of consciousness, in an extreme situation, he's not a murderer, even though technically he did take somebody's life. And he went on to be just incredibly, it's such a beautiful human being and meditated and did very well and had to deal with survivor's guilt. But you you can't always label somebody because of what they've done in the past. You have to be able to read their energy now and know whether they're safe now. Everything is now. If you're too caught up in the dialogue and the thoughts of they did, you're going to miss now. This is what's important. Are they going to kill you now? Do you need to run now? And it might change. Things are always changing. So being able to read energy, and if you're not showing up as yourself, then people are reading your energy, but something's not quite right. Something's off. Have you ever been with somebody and something didn't feel quite right about that person? It gave you a funny feeling in your gut, or something just didn't add up. They were really friendly and nice, but I just can't put my finger on it. That's because they're dumbing themselves down. They're not able to show up as themselves. They're hiding. They have just developed workarounds in their personality to cope with that lack of love or lack of belief that they can secure love. And that is sad. And I pray that people, the wounded children in the world, rediscover who they are and know that they are love and can receive love And I hope we all show up and we have compassion with everyone around us, the people that are dumbing themselves down, for us and ourselves if we're dumbing ourselves down, and for just the wider world, because this is a phenomenon that goes on regularly. I've done a little bit of dumbing myself down in the film industry in order to stay with the group. So when I was on set, if another actor was having a bit of trouble with their lines, rather than just showing up, and sometimes my energy is very big and terrifying the other actor, I would kind of bring my performance down a notch to make it a little more of a level playing field. But the director's like, cut! What are you doing? No. And so sometimes you can be more aware of that tendency. Swimmers have it. They've done studies and they wondered, why is it that swimmers that are in the lead are suddenly slowing down and losing the race? Well, it's because of the peripheral vision. They can see, oh, I'm with the group, I'm with the group. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm losing the group, and their body slows down because it doesn't want to be separate from the group. It's a little bit of a phenomenon. So you might have that, not wanting to move away from the group. And in doing so, dumbing yourself down. Some people are ahead of the curve. Some people are designed to break away from the group and to do things differently, like the moths that suddenly morphed and became black and the rest of them were white. But then the black ones survived because when it was polluted, they blended in with the polluted backgrounds and the dusty backgrounds, and they weren't eaten by birds. And so that adaptation in their genetics and them turning dark helped. And so we're going to have individuals that change genetically, but not only that, that just get desires to do something differently. And it's important for those people to experiment with that and to do those things differently and to get over their fear of trying, even if they fail. Because I'm sure a lot of those little moths died. And so if you have a desire to do something differently than the group or to be creative, do it. It can really benefit the system. And maybe that's just the way you're designed. Some people can be designed to stay in the group a little bit of the time, and then they get an impulse from nature, and nature wants to guide them to go out in a different direction. And if they're not dumbing themselves down, then off they go. But then if they're worried about what other people think or they're afraid, then it doesn't happen so easily. So don't dumb yourself down. Thank you for listening, and I will do another video soon.